Now, one season that did wrap up on Monday was the NCAA football season. Once again, Alabama wins the national championship. Brandon, with all the success that Alabama has had, is it any shock that they were the ones that won the national title in this season that was so topsy-turvy and crazy? The program that has sustained the most success was the one that won it this year?
No, not really, to be honest. And I mean, this decade of dominance of Alabama is just really not, for me, has not been a surprise at all. They really have some of the top recruiting classes every single year, and you've seen it. I mean, just look at their wide receiver room over these last 10 years has been amazing, with guys like Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, Devontae Smith, just to name a few. But no, they've just been amazing, and they really pieced it together. Their offense was so explosive this year. I really didn't see anybody stopping them, to be honest. And their defense really didn't have to do too much, but I think they really showed up to play, especially defensively in the national championship game. But yeah, I mean, I think in this, once again, in this age of COVID, they've gone through the ups and downs of the season. Nick Saban tested positive for COVID twice during the season. So not having your coach on the sideline, I know for one of the games that he tested positive, that hurt. And then I know he came back for the other game. But not being there for the preparation, I know that would hurt during the week. But he's built such a great staff around him. You see guys getting head coaching jobs and offensive and defensive coordinator jobs off of his staff routinely. So, the train just moves on with that team. And, but my brother's a huge Alabama fan. He always tells me Roll Tide. And, the other day I just had to say it too. I had to say it, Roll Tide, because, I mean, what is it, 6 titles in these last 12 years? Yep. That's just extremely impressive. I'm a huge Florida State fan, and they had their decade of dominance in the 90s, and you saw that. But, I mean, I can't say it's matched to this run that Alabama's been on, and just Nick Saban personally winning 7 titles is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things for them is their skills positions, like you mentioned earlier with the receivers. They've been absolutely loaded. You mentioned all the wideouts, but you look at the running backs. I mean, Mark Ingram, Trent Richardson, he flat out in the NFL, but was still a very good college running back. Talked about Henry, Eddie Lacy, Kenyon Drake, TJ Yeldon, Josh Jacobs, Damian Harris here in New England. Najee Harris is going to be probably a first-round pick in the upcoming draft. So when your backs and receivers are not just really good, but elite like those guys are, you're going to be good for that long. They haven't really had, I think Tua was probably their most highly decorated quarterback, both as a recruit and also how he performed at Alabama in the stats and being a high draft pick. We'll see where Mac Jones goes in the draft. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 pick by any stretch of the imagination, but that could change. But it's really been those skills positions that have been so good for Alabama for over a decade now that I think that's what's gotten them to this point.
No, I think you've nailed it on the head there. The skill positions are really getting it done. That core of running backs that you named there over that decade of dominance has just been unbelievable. And the wide receivers that we said, like we mentioned. But honestly, I'd like to point out the big boys up front, the offensive linemen. They have really been tearing it up on this run of titles as well. I think you got to see really one of their leaders come back on the field. I think Landon Dickerson, their center, he was out in the SEC championship due to injury, but he came back on the field last night at the end of the game to be able to snap the ball. And that shows you a lot about the team camaraderie that they're building on that team there. And even Devontae Smith, he said that he came and he stayed at Alabama to win a national championship and to get a college degree. So that's huge, where you had some guys that were opting out of bowl games. And on Alabama, I don't think you've seen anybody opt out. They were all there to win the title. That's exactly what they did. And I want to say this, another thing too is a lot of these guys, they won it in their hometown. Alabama has gone down to Florida, to South Florida, and recruited very well. So you had a lot of guys from the city of Miami that won this national championship in their hometown. And honestly, it was just impressive to watch. I knew the game was over when it was, I believe, in the 35-17. I actually went to bed. And then when I put on the game and the score in the morning and saw that they scored 52, wasn't surprised again. But, yeah, the decade of dominance just continues. And here's the thing, too. If I come into your living room and you're a Power 5 recruit, a 5-star recruit, And I tell you this, because this is the truth. If I guarantee you a national championship if you come to Alabama, would you be coming? Of course you would come. And with these guys, that's exactly the run that they've been on right now, is pretty much everybody that Nick Saban recruits gets a chance to win a ring, and most of them have.
Yeah, that's right. It's just they've got it down to a science where they, Saban shows up, he's got all his rings that probably can't fit on just one finger. And, now he has, I know in the beginning of Saban's run, there was kind of a point where you're questioning, there were a few Alabama players that came out for the draft and weren't quite panning out in the NFL. But then as, the 2010s, when our most recent decade really first started, now you started seeing some blue chip guys get into the NFL and were just elite players in the NFL. And I think not only can you now preach how good your program is, the facilities are amazing, you're going to compete for a national title, but you're going to get drafted in the NFL probably in the first couple of rounds if you play at Alabama and you are that good of a player. So I think that's very important too for Saban going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's another thing that you can get to say is, like you said, how many of these guys go in the first couple rounds of the NFL draft, and it's a lot of them. So, they get coached up well there. It's a great coaching staff. They really get to learn their X's and O's. So they're really coming in really a lot better off than some of these guys would be coming in as a rookie. And I think that one of the guys that you can really say to that is Damian Harris for the New England Patriots. Really came in, was ready to run the ball immediately as an NFL running back.